Hey, it's Frank again with Readphone Studios. Today we're going to be doing something... Oh, that hello was really quick, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. And the reason for that is because this took me 6.5 hours when I was planning for it to only take 4, maybe 5, probably closer to 3 in all honesty. That's how long I was expecting it to take. And it just took monstrously longer, so... Not only is this video just one card frame creation video, it is actually two, one of which is much simpler, just because I wanted to throw it down without making it a separate video because of how short it ended up being. So the first thing in this video is I started off with a concept for the character card frame, and the original idea was that it was kind of this, like this threads, or I guess the best word for them is threads, were pulling at the edges of a table surface and pulling into the dimension of the main characters of the story, which I ended up abandoning pretty quick because I just felt it didn't work at all. So I ended up going with my original idea, which I am a lot happier with than the other idea, just because of how much simpler it was in concept and in execution. Probably shouldn't be itching my legs while I'm recording. Okay. I'm in it 2 minutes in, so that's not too bad. I only wasted 2 minutes of time talking about absolute nonsense. Maybe I should just keep this. Maybe this should just be this video. Yeah, so I started off doing this really complicated design that was supposed to tell the entire history of Saphira in one clean picture frame, which like made absolutely no sense. I don't know why I had that idea for even a second, so I just went with a much simpler little decal design. And I was initially thinking, oh man, I should like do something different for each of the individual nations, and that would have been way too complicated to think about and write all out in each of their sort of individual languages, because they've all got their own way of writing and speaking. Not really speaking, I guess. It's kind of like D&D. There's like common, but they all write differently. I had a lot of issues, or I had some issues, I should say, with some of these corner pieces because they just weren't quite fitting and they smudged up against the edge, and I don't know why exactly that happened. I mirrored it perfectly, but whatever, water under the bridge. So I actually lost a little bit of footage in there. What you're seeing now is me just doing all of the little detailing when you never actually saw me put the paper piece in. So I do end up going over the paper piece a little bit. I took the really soft eraser brush and edged out the lighter parts and the darker parts in comparison to one another. And yeah, it really sucks that I lost those parts because they were kind of pivotal to making the piece look as good as it did. But overall, I think I'm okay without it. So what I'm doing right now is I'm creating the little icon pieces for all of the, I guess you would call them classes, sort of in the Saphira universe, question mark. I don't know if I should call it a universe, but yeah, so there's 5 sort of classes a character can fall under. There's Knight, Archer, Wizard, Blacksmith, and Half God. And every character kind of falls into one of those 3. Like, it's not really by like their own personal choice. It's more by the way that their cards function, and then I sort of built them around that. They all sort of have this military affiliation, affection. I don't know what the proper word would be in this instance, but they've all got some stake in the military, and that's what draws them to the Temporal Shard. That's what makes them the characters that work for the series. Because if they didn't have any draw towards the Temporal Shard, then they would never get it, and thus they would never be characters. And you wouldn't send... I don't know, you wouldn't send, like, the baker to fight in a war for a highly valued magical artifact. Or at least I wouldn't. I don't think that would make much sense. But yeah. So all of the characters fall into one of those 5 archetypes, I guess, and that affects the way that they're played in the card game to a degree. I sort of keep it more as a loose guideline than anything really explicitly rigid, because I feel like it works better that way. I have more creativity, but I do try to generalize it towards that sort of theme where each character has, like, it's not unexpected when a knight is able to do a certain thing that a wizard, for example, can't do. So what I'm doing right here is I'm creating all of the individual nations' insignias, which I designed all of these a long time ago, and I'm still surprisingly happy with them for how often I change designs and switch things around. I think they really represent the races, not just in how they've been designed, but also in their flavor to a certain degree. Like, I've picked all the colors based on certain attributes that I've given to each of them, and some of them are designed very literally, some of them are designed very sort of more insignia-like, where it's not a literal representation. Like, sort of how flags can be really abstract, or how they can literally represent the, whether it be the country in some way, like a particular landmark, or like municipal versus provincial versus federal layers of government, how they all sort of have their own logos, I guess, that they use to brand themselves. Oh, my computer slowed down at this point. What I ended up doing with all of the little nation insignias, because once I was done with the class ones, and then I got done with the nation ones, I was then on to the magic symbols, which are tons and tons of fun, because while they were actually pretty fun to sketch out, and some of them I gave a little bit of a redesign to, it was really painful, because I spent like this on its own, all of these little insignias and symbols and whatnot took up so much of the total runtime of me working. Like, and I can't even understand why. It's so simple. It should have taken like 20 minutes at most, not like 2 hours in total. But yeah, I sort of designed all of the magic symbols with textures that I felt matched what I wanted the magic group to be able to do. Like with the weather one, I gave it this kind of rainy day aesthetic. With the guard, or it would be resist magic, I guess. With the resist magic, I gave it this sort of edge towards each ends of the magic. So like where the opponents, I'm using air quotes for opponents magic is coming up against yours, and where your own magic is, everything is kind of pointed towards each other as if to indicate conflict. Healing was just sort of, it was weird to design the healing one and give it a texture, because I didn't have any texture in mind, so it ended up just being a little bit complicated. The mind one I definitely had a different intention for when I started out, because it had already had a solid design for a good while, but looking at it again and looking at the various different ways I've designed it, I've never really liked it, but the version I came up with here was so much better. And the lightning one has stayed exactly the same since I originally designed it, because it fits with the concept so well of lightning. Try to make them all overlap in such a way that it looked clean. And I did the same thing with these guys, but what I did with them instead was I took them and I made them as not really an overlay, but like as an imprint onto the paper piece, to make it so it wasn't so crowded in that one corner, to kind of give it some more visual balance. And here's more of the insignia drawing, because now I'm drawing the half-god magic groups rather than just the standard Saphira magic groups. Woo, fun. But these really were still really fun to do. I just wish I didn't. It's entirely my fault too, because I made so many of the freaking things. I made so many that I would have to inevitably spend hours and hours, because I'm not smart, designing and redesigning and redesigning with new iterations to fit each individual medium, rather than, because some of them just really didn't work. Some of them were too tall, some of them were too wide, and some of them just really needed a redesign in general. I don't know how I let some of the designs, even in my own mind, pass. Oh yeah, this one was fun. This is a very special little treat that I'm not going to tell you about, but doing the little flame at the bottom there was difficult, because what I would usually do is I would take the same thing and make it larger, so that way I could just circling ants erase. But that didn't end up working, because I couldn't just resize it without it pooping out on me. So like I said at the top of the video, this is sort of like a 2-for-1, because this video took way too long to make. In all honesty, I spent way too much time just procrastinating. So this is, earlier it was the character card frames, and now it is the setting card frames, and obviously it's left blank, because the idea I had was, rather than trying to come up with another entirely unique frame to fit the medium and whatever, I would make it so it, like, you could just slide an image into the background and it would look exactly the same for all of them, and it would look great, but it wouldn't be overbearing, and it wouldn't cause you to, like, need to shrink the image down. You could actually blow it up. And yeah, I think that one works out a lot better than the original. And for the character card, I ended up going in and adding a couple of things in post that sort of changed the overall look and feel of it, because I needed to add some things that I had completely forgotten about. Like, I have this design document that I use to concept all of these, but yeah, overall I'm happy with how all these came out. So I think I'm going to be signing off now. I'll see all you guys later. Still trying to figure out what to say at the end.